friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm gonna talk about the first, I don't even know how many books, the first 33 books that I read in the first quarter of the year. So if you know me and you know my channel, you know that I don't do monthly wrap-ups, and I thought that it'd be a good idea to do quarterly type of wrap-ups. So I'm gonna talk about the first 33 books that I read in the first 3 months of the year, which are obviously January, February, and March. So yeah, I read 33 books, so my 100 books for the year goal is going pretty well. I'm ahead of schedule. So yeah. So in the month of January, I read 10 books, and I'm gonna talk about them now. So first off, I read A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the finale in the Cursebreaker series. I ended up giving this like a 2.5, 2.75 star rating. Like I said, obviously this is the finale of that series. I think I waited too long to pick this up. I feel like if I'd picked it up right after the sequel, it would have been great, but obviously I did read it at a time where this wasn't out yet, and then when it came out, I was just reading different things and I wasn't like in the mindset for this. So this ended up being a 2.5 out of 5, and I was really sad about it because I loved, like, I adored the first 2 books. The finale just wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be for me. And I know there's going to be like other books in this series now, and I don't even know if I'm going to be picking this up, to be honest. But yeah. The next book that I read is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. I read this
for Jan, for her book club, Jan's book.
I read this for Jan's book club, the Full Moon book club. That was such a tongue twister. Anyway, this is a middle grade novel about this like little village that kind of sacrifices kids. I believe it's like on a yearly basis, and they kind of give away a child. I don't remember how they choose this kid, but they just like leave it in the woods, and then there's a witch that comes along and she takes the kids. But the people in the village think that this witch is like evil, and that's something that they have to do in order to keep the witch away. But in fact, the witch is actually really nice. And she accidentally feeds this child. She feeds her moon. I don't even remember how that happens. I think it's like moonlight. And it's a really cute story. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really love this one. Next up, I read a couple of graphic novels. I'm not gonna go into too much depth about each and every single book. Just whatever like I want to talk about, I will. But I read Squad. This is a graphic novel, and this one was really cool. This one was like a mix of like Teen Wolf and like the Heathers type movie, like that cult classic. I really liked this one. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. It was a very different type of graphic novel than from what I read. I usually read very cutesy type of graphic novels, but I really enjoyed this one. Talking about cutesy graphic novels, I read The Prince and the Dressmaker, and this one was so cute. Basically, this one is set in France. Well, our main character is a girl, and she is a dressmaker, and then she meets the prince somehow, some way, and the prince actually likes to wear dresses, so she makes him dresses, and he goes by like a different name when he puts these dresses on, and it's really cute, and I love this one. I think I gave this one probably 4 or 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Gods of Jane and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I think I unhauled that book now. I bought it when I was in Chicago with Jan, from Jan Agaton, but I unhauled it because I didn't love it, and usually books that I don't really love, I just unhaul. I read that one for my book club with Cami from Borrows and Books, Brujas and Books, and I gave that one a 3-star, I think. It's not the worst thing I've read, not the best. It was okay. I've been reading graphic novels in between most of the books that I've been reading, so you're gonna see a lot of graphic novels in this, and this is the reason also why I'm ahead of my schedule for 100 books of the year. So next up, I read Ghosts, and this one again was pretty cute. I believe this had Hispanic representation in it. I probably gave this about a 4 out of 5 stars. I think I read this really early in the year. I remember really liking it. can't remember much of what happened in that graphic novel, but it was a good time when I read it. Next up, I have Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This one, from what I remember, I gave a 4. I should have my Goodreads up. Okay, so this one I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. I just pulled up my Goodreads, so I'm not like guessing. But I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, and basically this one is about this girl who is at her college campus, and she needs to get home for some reason. As well, there's a campus serial killer at her college, and she gets on like this ride-share system at her college, and she gets in this car with a stranger, and then she thinks that she's in the same car as the campus serial killer, and they're kind of like traveling. I believe it's actually to Ohio, now that I remember. But the main character is very, very unlikable, which I understand why so many people didn't really like this book. I really like that I don't mind those type of characters as the main character. I actually really enjoyed reading that in that aspect. But yeah, I can definitely see why some people didn't like it, but I really enjoyed it, thankfully, so I give it a 4 out of 5. Next up, I read We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and I believe I also gave this one...
Why am I saying believe? I have Goodreads in front of me.
I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. This one is about an Irish-American family, and there's a lot of family drama. I picked this up because I saw the Roomies Digest talk a lot about this book, and I picked it up, and I really loved it. Gave it a 4 out of 5. And yeah, next up I read a graphic novel called Stargazing, and I gave it 4 out of 5. I honestly cannot tell you what this graphic novel is about. I can't remember. Next up, I read Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, and this one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty enjoyable experience. I feel like the only thing that I didn't really like was the end and how it all wrapped up. I didn't really like the twist and like the reveal and all of that. But if you don't know, Reckless Girls is about this, like, they're not friends. Hold on. It's about this couple. Our main character is a girl. She has a boyfriend, and he like has a boat, and then there's these like white girls that want to go to like this island that they are at in Hawaii, but there's like a remote island that they want to go and like explore. So they basically pay this girl's boyfriend to take them to the island, and then things go from there. They're kind of stuck at the island. It's a whole thing. I really enjoyed the reading experience. It's just the ending wasn't it for me, so that's why I give it a 3 out of 5. But if you don't mind, like I really enjoyed my time reading it. The ending was just not very strong for me. Okay, so in the month of February, I read 11 books, and here they are. Next up, I read a graphic novel called Smile, and this one is basically about this young teenager girl's life, and she gets braces, or I think she like gets 2 of her teeth knocked out because she like falls or something. And basically it's her whole experience trying to get her teeth like to look pretty, but then everything else that's going along like in her life while she's in middle school and all of that. And it was really cute. I gave it, I believe, a 4 out of 5. Next up, I have one of my biggest disappointments of the year, and that's A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. Well, I'm looking at my rating right now in front of me, and I gave this a 3 out of 5, but in hindsight, like months later after reading it, this is probably like a 2 out of 5. I really didn't like this. This was kind of pitched as like this missing girl story, and this kind of like detective that is very good at finding people, and that's what I thought it was going to be. But this is pretty much like all set in this kind of like commune, is that what they're called? Hold on. It's all set in like this reclusive community called the Pastoral. I couldn't even remember the name of it, and it's all set there, and it's actually kind of boring, to be honest. The mystery isn't like really there. It wasn't really there for me. I didn't like the twist. It's not what I expected it to be, and it was really like overhyped for me. So in hindsight, I would say this is a 2 out of 5. Next up, I read another graphic novel, and that was The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. Sorry. This one, like the title says, it's about a witch boy, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read the sequel in the Sleeping Giants series, which is Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel, and this was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I was really scared to pick up the sequel for this series because I read Sleeping Giants so long ago that I felt like I wouldn't be able to remember anything, but shit goes down in this book. This book made me cry, and I feel like Sleeping Giants, I never imagined it like to be that strong of a series for me, because it's all told in like interview format, so you don't have a lot of like inner dialogue or like descriptions of like characters or like their feelings and all of that. And it's a sci-fi also, which is something that I don't read very often. But I loved Waking Gods. If you don't know, this is a, like I said, a sci-fi story. It's all told in interview format, so it's really, really easy to read, really fast, and they're really short. And I love the series. I need to pick up the third book because this one was so good. Much better than the first one also, so yes. Next up, I read Heartstopper Volume 4, and I give this one a 5 out of 5 stars. If you don't know Heartstopper, it's a graphic novel series about these two boys falling in love, and it's set in England, and it's super cute. There's a Netflix TV show coming out soon, and for Volume 4, it does have, I would say, to look up the trigger warnings because it does talk about eating disorders and depression and all of that. So it was a more hard-hitting than the first two volumes, which were like really fluffy and all about love. But now it's dealing with a lot of more like difficult topics, which I'm really enjoying in the series. So I give this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read People We Meet on Vacation, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. But now thinking about it, I'm gonna say a 3 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it at the time that I read it, but like now I can't remember anything. I don't even remember the characters. It is pretty much basically about these two best friends that go on vacation often, like every couple of years, and they had a big falling out. They're not friends anymore, but somehow, some way they end up at another vacation, and in that vacation, obviously, they fall in love. Next up, I have a manga that I read, and that was Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. This one is a manga series about this young girl who is a witch, and she has to go to magic school. And it's a really good start to a series. Obviously, I haven't picked up any other volumes because my library doesn't have them for some reason, so that's upsetting. But yeah, I'm hoping to continue this manga series soon. Next up, I read Grimoire Noir, and I actually gave this one a 2 out of 5. Didn't really enjoy it. It's not my type of graphic novel either, because like I said, I usually like more cutesy type of stories. I have read like the occasional like saga and like Junju Ito recently, but I usually don't gravitate towards these type of stories. And Grimoire Noir, it's more of like a dark, this girl goes missing, there's magic, but it was very info dumpy, so I didn't really enjoy it. Next up, I read Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie, and I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. This was a February book club pick for Brujas and Books, and I love this book. This is probably one of my favorite books of the year so far. We'll see if it makes it to the top 10 of 2022. But I really enjoyed it. Basically, this book follows, our main character is a bisexual Cuban young girl. She's in high school. She is in her senior year of high school, so there's all of those trials and tribulations of like senior year and all of the changes, and she's really scared of change and all of the expectations that everyone around her has about her. And she's also like falling in love, and it's so beautiful. I love this one so much. So yes, if you're looking for a contemporary similar to like Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, I'll definitely recommend this one till the day I die. Next up, I read another graphic novel called Drama, and this one is by the same person that wrote Smile, so they were very similar, but basically about this really young girl. She's in middle school, and this one is all about they're putting on like a theater show performance. I can't remember what the show was about, but basically they're putting on this show, and this girl, she just has crushes like every other chapter, but she's going through like a little love triangle type of situation. There is LGBTQIA plus rep in this book, and I really liked it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. And the last book that I read in the month of February was How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. This was an arc that was sent to me, I believe, by Penguin Teen. Sorry if that's incorrect. I'll put in the screen also. Well, actually, I'll just look it up right now. This book comes out August of this year, and this one was a mix of the movie, like, what is it called? It's a mix of the movie Happy Death Day Party and Scream, and basically this one follows this young girl who watched her older sister get murdered in front of her. It was very like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type, so it is a little bit gory, but our main character is a huge fan also of horror movies, so it does have like that Scream feel. And basically on the day of the trial, she's the only one that was there and saw her sister get murdered, and she's like certain that it was this one person. So a year later, she's in the trial and she goes to the bathroom and she gets hit in the head, and when she wakes up on the day that her sister was murdered. So she sees her sister alive, and she's trying, like, in this alternate universe, she's trying to keep her sister alive and figure out who actually killed her. This one was a 3 out of 5 for me. Like the whole book, I was like, oh, this is like a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm really enjoying it. I really like it. It was giving all the vibes. The ending though, like, it did not make a lot of sense. I feel like there are some plot holes in there. It's like somehow, some way, there's some plot holes in there. Like some things just didn't make sense, and also like the reveal just wasn't it for me, obviously because of the plot holes. But it was hard because I was enjoying myself so much during the whole thing. And it's like one of the arcs that I've read the fastest ever. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 5, but it's probably, it should have been a 2. But if I wasn't like, if I hadn't enjoyed my time so much reading it, that's why it's a 3. I'm gonna stop talking about it now. Alright, moving on to March. I read 11 books, and the first book that I read, you're going to see a lot of a middle grade because it was middle grade March. But the first book I read was The School for Good and Evil by Saman Chainani. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I have a whole reading vlog where I talk about this book, and I'm pretty sure it was my middle grade March reading vlog. But as the title says, there is the School for Good and Evil. It has very Hogwarts, like Harry Potter type of vibes. It is a middle grade. It's about these two best friends, and they kind of get separated. One of them goes to the school for good, one of them goes to the school for evil. Really enjoyed my time. I just read the sequel, and they were both 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Ghost Squad by Claribel Ortega. I read this for the Brujas and Books book club pick for March. This one was very like Coco meets like Ghostbusters type of vibes. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. Really enjoyed like the Hispanic representation in this book. It is a very short novel, I would say. I think it's 200 pages long, but the font is huge, so I would say it's about 100 pages long, so there wasn't a lot of room for like depth in the novel. But it was a fun, quick adventure type of story that it was good to read. Next up, I read the first volume in A Silent Voice. This is a manga series, and I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm really enjoying the series. I've read 2 volumes as of now. I'll talk about the second one later, actually. But I've read 2 volumes, and I gave both of them 5 out of 5 stars. This manga series follows this young deaf girl, and she is heavily bullied, and the other main character that we follow is one of the boys that bullies her like a lot. But it seems like it's turning into a love story, which I wasn't really sure how I felt about it at the beginning, but I'm actually really here for it because of all of the growth and learning that our characters are having. So they were both 5 out of 5 stars. Unfortunately, my library doesn't have volume 3, so I'm gonna have to buy this series in order to continue reading it, so I'm waiting for the right time, but this will get read. Next up, I read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and this was a 5 out of 5 stars. This is also probably one of my favorite books of the year, and I won't say too much about it, but this is a fantasy novel, and it follows a lot of very strong women POVs, and this is a Rumpelstiltskin fairy tale retelling, and it was everything. I really loved it. Also, I read this for my Reading Like Kaling Abridged video, so if you're interested in seeing more thoughts in depth about what I thought about this book, you can go and watch that one. Next up, I read Shauns Tea Party, and this was by Raymena Yi. this is a very cute graphic novel. It also dealt a lot with like change, and this girl that doesn't really want like all of the changes that come with being in high school, and basically she befriends this ghost and she feels very safe and secure with this friend, but this ghost friend is basically like pushing her to do more and go outside of her comfort zone, and it was really cute, and I think I gave this a 4 out of 5. Except I have Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow. Also read this for my Kaylin Abridged video, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a very Harry Potter like type of story. This one follows this young girl and her family. Doesn't really like her because she's like the unluckiest child in their town, and basically she is about 11 years old, and on the day of her 11th birthday, she's actually, because of this like, not myth, there's like a word for it, it's like her fate to die when she turns 11 years old, and on her birthday this man Jupiter comes in and whisks her away to the land of Nevermore, and then at Nevermore, in order for her to stay in this land, she has to go through all of these trials with all of these other kids that are going through the same process as her, and it was very cute. I feel like in this first novel the author like left a really good like a breadcrumb trail of all these little things that are going to connect in the next book, so I'm really excited to pick up the sequel. And like I said earlier, I also read volume 2 of A Silent Voice. Also gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. I really enjoyed this one. I read this one for Sav's Lights Out book club, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed my time reading this, and this one has to do with a serial killer that in 1999 he kills all of the people on the night shift at the Blockbuster, and then many years later it happens again but at an ice cream shop, and then they're trying to figure out like who is the serial killer because they thought they had the right person. Like I said, gave it a 4 out of 5. Really enjoyed my time reading this, so yeah. Next up I have another middle grade, and that is Green Glass House by Kate Milford. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. This one follows the main character is an adopted boy, and his family runs like this Green Glass House. It's kind of like a hotel, but they house a lot of smugglers. It has a very like adventure type of story. There's another young child in this book, and they come together and kind of create this game, and it's really adventurous and really cute, and I really liked it, so I gave it a 3 out of 5. Alrighty, last 2 books. So I did a reread of The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. I am doing this because Christina from Christina's Chapters and Hannah from Hannah's Recent Reads are doing a read-along for every single book that Sarah J Maas has ever written, and I needed the motivation to pick up the Throne of Glass series again. I will say till the day I die now that you must read The Assassin's Blade before you read Throne of Glass. I did it that way around this time because that's what Hannah said to do, and it is the way to go. There's no way I literally read Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and then I read this one, and I was not enjoying my time at all. And this time around, when I picked this one up first, it's a whole different experience. So this time around, I gave The Assassin's Blade 4 out of 5 stars, and originally when I first read it, I probably gave it like a 2 star. So yes, if you don't know Throne of Glass, I don't know where you've been. But this is one of Sarah J Maas's most famous series that she has out there, and it follows this really young 16-year-old assassin who is like the best assassin in the land, and it's very YA Game of Thrones vibes. And then the last book that I read in the month of March was Olga Dies Dreaming. I heard someone say their first name, but I can't remember how to say it. I'm sorry, but it's by Xochitl Gonzalez. I'm so sorry, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but this one follows a pair of siblings that are Puerto Rican, but they live in New York, and they're actually super successful. The brother, the boy, he is like a person in politics, and then the woman, Olga, she works like as a wedding planner for really like famous people, and they are very estranged with their mother. Their mother has really been very involved in politics in Puerto Rico, so basically she kind of left them behind with their grandmother, and she went on her own to Puerto Rico and just left them behind, so they don't really have a really strong connection. This is also all in the background of Hurricane Maria that has happened in Puerto Rico and all of that. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5. I really wanted to love it, but I just didn't. It's hard to explain. I feel like I also read this at the wrong time, because right now I'm really into like fantasy and like middle grade and all of that, and this is none of those things. This is very literary fiction, and it actually touches a lot on like politics, so I read this at the wrong time. Alright, so those were all of the books that I read in the first 3 months of the year. Like I said, I read 33 books, and I am currently at 44 books for the year so far, and it is mid-April, so hopefully in the next quarter I'll do a video like this again and talk about all of the books that I read in that quarter, which would be April, May, and June. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I usually don't do wrap-up videos, and if you don't watch my reading vlogs, you probably don't really know much of my thoughts about the books that I'm reading, so I hope that y'all enjoyed this. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.